Switch order. Well, good evening and welcome to the July 17th Durango City Council meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilor Bettine.
Here.
Councilor Brookie. Councilor White.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef.
Here.
Mayor Marbury.
Here. And tonight we have a proclamation, so I'm going to go to the podium. And I'm going to begin with the Americans with Disabilities Act and Awareness. And Jason Ragsdale?
He's coming.
He's coming. All right, great. Well, I will begin reading, and then this is Jason Ragsdale will be accepting. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas the City of Durango affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth for the state of Colorado and as embodied in the ADA, the laws of the state of Colorado and ordinances of the City of Durango. And whereas numerous organizations in the City of Durango and the state of Colorado work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. And whereas the following businesses that have completed improvements with the City of Durango accessible community funding: Backcountry Experience, Brennan Oil Exxon, Brew Pub and Kitchen, College Drive Cafe, Columbine Condominium Association, Durango Business Improvement District, Durango Chamber of Commerce, Highway 3 Business District, Himalayan Kitchen, La Plata Youth Services, Maria's Bookstore, Steamworks Brewing Company, the Commons Building, and Tea Smokehouse and Grill, as well as an equal number of businesses that have conducted assessments and are in the process of completing improvements. And whereas July 26, 2018 celebrates the 28th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the City of Durango and local businesses' commitment to community accessibility. Now, therefore, I, Sweetie Marbury, Mayor of Durango, Colorado, do hereby extend greetings and best wishes and recognition to the organizations and local businesses that have demonstrated leadership in increasing access to people with disabilities in Durango, and all observing July 26, 2018 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. So, all right, of course. So we'll wait just a second. Jason is a fellow I've known since he was in high school, and it's so great that he is participating with this. And we'll just, if you'd like to sign in for public participation, it's right up there, or any of the other legislative issues. Certainly, and thank you for coming to City Council tonight. While I'm here, I'm going to also thank Troop 501 for coming to City Council tonight. Their scout troop is learning more about how government runs, and so we're very pleased to have their troop leader and a member of the 501 troop here. And aren't we blessed to have the rain? So if you're watching television, I have a bell at my house, and every time it rings, I'm ringing the bell in my front yard. So I am that lady that rings the bell when it rains. So we're all happy that it's raining. Thank you, thank you. More rain coming to Durango. And here comes Jason. Hi, Jason.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. We're happy that you're here tonight. And I wanted to thank you. This is for you with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that we're recognizing the ADA the last 28 years. Would you like to say something?
Sure.
All right. Microphone's right above your head.
Yeah, you bet. Wanted to thank Mayor Marbury and the council for making the 28th the Americans with Disability Act Awareness Day. I think it's important. It's a 28-year-old law, and I think it's still kind of a mystery to some people. I think, especially when it comes to existing structures, I think that everyone is aware that when we do new constructions or remodels, that there are certain codes that they should live up to. But I think in the circumstances that, we're presented in a town like this, a lot of people come to this town because we are so unique and unlike everywhere else. I think that's one of the draws to this area, and we want to maintain that uniqueness. And so we certainly don't want to do any kind of damaging new construction, but I've been really happy with what the city's done here. They've given us a grant of $25,000 that we can use to help existing businesses improve their accessibility, and a lot of things are not as dramatic as I think a lot of people assume. Most of the things are things that can be done for under $2,000. Maybe handles on a doorway. Most people don't know, but the ADA requires that doors be less than 5 pounds and able to open with a closed fist, so that somebody with any sort of palsy would still be able to access and get in there. And just changing the doorknobs like that would be a really quick, simple fix. And so I'm really happy that we've been able to do this, because we're in a situation, like I said, a lot of what is mysterious about the ADA, Title III of the ADA says that anything that is reasonable to improve, if we're going to remove those barriers, if it's reasonable, they should be done. And what makes something reasonable has a lot of different variables. And one of those variables is the amount of money that the business is making at the time. And as you guys know, we're in sort of a situation with these fires, and business isn't great. And so I think you can take that into consideration, something you wouldn't really want to press as something they need to do. But a lot of these businesses have chosen to do it just because good access is good business. When people can get in there, they make money, and it helps with people feeling like they're a part of the community. The idea of the ADA was to incorporate people with disabilities into mainstream society in American life. And so, I'm an independent living specialist with the Southwest Center for Independence, and my job is to make sure that people with disabilities can live in the community just like everyone else. And I'm happy that we've been able to take advantage of this city money and work with these businesses in town. The Brennan Oil Station has made some improvements to their bathrooms. Maria's Bookstore made an improvement to a bathroom. Brew downtown improved some bathrooms, and then T's Smokehouse, it added some things that made it accessible. And like I said, they're simple things, but it really helps, and it makes it so that people can go in there and spend their money and enjoy our community. It's easy to take these things for granted if you're not dealing with it. And so what we're hoping is that when we're going out in the community, is that we're just reminding people something that they may have overlooked. I don't think anybody's ever wringing their hands and saying, I'm going to keep those people out of here, and I'm not going to let them spend any money. So I hope that this year what we're trying to do is trying to just make this sort of a gentle reminder. Here's what we can do with this money, and we're going to try and celebrate the people that have gone ahead and taken advantage of this money to make this stuff happen, to say, hey, it's easy, anybody can do it. And so I'm hoping that this day, the 28th of July every year, will remain Americans with Disability Act Awareness Day here in Durango. And I'm hoping that we can keep running programs like this to try and be positive about making these changes and making this a more accessible community for everyone. So thanks, guys.
Just a reminder, if you came to speak during public participation, please go up to the table and sign up. So if you want to speak during public participation, go to the table and sign up. All right, if you're here for legislative matters, go to the table and sign up. Go to the table and sign up. The next proclamation concerns a good friend of mine, Dean K. Thomas Day, July 17th. Whereas Dean K. Thomas will conclude 8 years of service as president of Fort Lewis College this summer, during which time she prevailed over a number of challenges and is leaving a long list of accomplishments that will benefit the college for many more years. And whereas Fort Lewis College, FLC, generates about 25% of the local economy, as well as contributes to the social and educational fabric of Durango. And whereas Dean set high standards for academic programs to prepare students for lifelong learning, successful careers, and thoughtful, engaged citizenship. And whereas under Dean's leadership, the redesign of the FLC curriculum contributed to re-accreditation in 2016. And whereas FLC's new curriculum included several new majors, including public health, computer engineering, journalism, and multimedia studies, in addition to a master's program in education. Boy, do I like that as a school teacher. That's fabulous. And whereas the partnership between the city and FLC flourished under Dean's leadership and became a model for town-gown cooperation as it resulted in the construction of the Smith Sports Complex, a new softball complex, and a new tennis facility. And whereas, in order to maintain her sense of humor, Dean Thomas became habituated to milk chocolate, salted caramels supplied by the city manager. And whereas residents of Durango are encouraged to honor and celebrate Dean for her outstanding contributions to our community. Now therefore I, Sweetie Marbury, Mayor of Durango, Colorado, do proclaim tonight, today, July 17th, as Dean Thomas Day. Let's give her a round of applause. And moving on, we will start, excuse me, with the consent agenda.
Senator.
What?
There are two presentations scheduled.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read that. Okay, let's do the very welcome Greg Boyson Santa Rita Water Reclamation Facility. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Marbury and members of council. This is our quarterly update for the Santa Rita Water Reclamation Facility project. And I'm going to start out here with a little flyover of the project starting from March of 17. Again, Victor Locke, Mitchell Carter, and Shannon Wagner with the PIO office created this flyover using their drone. And right now we're flying from south to north over the existing construction area. For my presentation, I want to point out that this is the dewatering building, this is the digester support building, this is the new digester, and this is the old aeration basin. And as the flyover proceeds, you'll see the new aeration basin. And so these are the primary treatment facility in the new plant. And you can see the two trains, what we call the trains to the left, are in operation. So the plant is actually in operation right now to a certain extent. Again, this is a flyover of the existing aeration basin. Each one of the trains holds over 800,000 gallons of fluid, and we have 4 trains, so there's about 3.5 million gallons of potential treatment in there. You can see the 2 trains on the left side are not in operation right now. We don't need those in the summertime because of the warm weather allows the microbes to work a little more efficiently. So, and then I've just got a short little PowerPoint that I'd like to show the council. And what I'd like to talk to tonight is the financial status, the schedule status, and then I have some photographs of the progress of construction. And as you know, the original contract amount was a little over $54 million. In the last year, that contract price has increased to a little over $55 million. So within that year, the contract has increased about 2%. That is well within industry standards. And the way we change the contract is through change orders. So that's a legal document that the city and the contractor agree to either increase or decrease the amount of work that's being done on the project. The cost is associated with that also, whether it goes up or down, depending on if we increase work or decrease it. So far to date, there have been a total of 20 change orders, right around $1 million so far. But I need to point out that 15 of those change orders were initiated as additions at the city's request. And I've got a couple examples. Right now, the old chamber building houses the staff for the wastewater plant. That building is in a little bit of disrepair, so we decided to put a coat of paint on it. So we did a change order with the Archer Western contract. Since they were on site, there was no mobilization cost to go ahead and paint that building. Another example is we had 2 lift stations on the campus, and we decided that we could eliminate one and improve another one, and we would save money in maintenance over the long run. So we, again, had the contractor do that. Another example of a change order that the city initiated. Another really good example is we didn't have an IT room for the wastewater plant. We have a bunch of new servers that are fairly delicate, so we asked Archer Western to give us a price to create a temperature and air-controlled room where we could put these servers. And so they gave us a price. We negotiated with that, and then we did a change order, added that work to the contract. So those are some examples of how the contract amount increases over time. And you may ask, well, where does that money come from? So at the start of all projects, when we do a budget, we put a certain amount of funds to the side for contingency. In this case, we started with a little over $5 million, which was about 9% of the total contract price. Again, that's fairly common for industry standards. Usually it's between 8 and 10%, so we were right in the sweet spot. Using that $1 million on those previous 20 change orders I mentioned leaves us about $4 million in our contingency fund. That's about 81% of where we started. So financially, we're in pretty good shape. As far as the schedule goes, the contract allowed for 746 days to do this construction, basically a little over 2 years. And so far we've used 412 days in the contract, which says that we're about 55% done with the project. Again, if you go back to our contingency fund, we're about halfway done, a little more than halfway done. We still have 80% of our contingency left. Financially, we're doing really well. As far as the schedule goes, we're struggling right now. We're having some negotiations with the contractor to make sure that we finish on time. We believe we can do that, but we need to do some additional work from both the contractor's point of view and the city's point of view. So we're working together to make sure that we do finish on time. I think the last time I was in front of council, I mentioned that another way to judge where you're at on a contract is the amount of money you've paid the contractor. We only pay for what he has constructed. Right now, we're at about 60%. So that matches the 55% on the contract time frame and where I feel we're at on the schedule. So budget-wise and schedule-wise, I think we're doing really well. Halfway through the project, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So what I'd like to do is just go through some of the photographs that we took back in April and then show you what I took this week. So back in April, this was the aeration basin. You can see we're still forming concrete, still installing the pipe network for the diffusers and the recirc pumps. And as you saw in the aerial and in this photograph, we have got 2 of the trains in operation right now. That's all we need to use to treat the amount of fluid that's coming into the plant. So in 3 months, we got the aeration basin up and running in operation. Again, 3 months ago, this is the chemical blower building, and we are still setting the block walls. 3 months later, we've got the building completely enclosed, the roof's on, the HVAC system is installed, and we're starting to install the architectural treatment on the outside. The siding is going up as of today, and inside that building is 3 of our high-speed air turbines. And so that picks up the air, increases the pressure, and sends it over to the aeration basin. You can see all the bubbles in the aeration basin. We've also set the poly tanks on the inside of the blower chemical building. These are for alum tanks. This is part of the process to thicken the waste. Again, back in April, we were working on the side stream. This is a treatment that takes the water from our dewatering process, treats it before we put it in the aeration basin. 3 months ago, we had just stripped the forms. As of yesterday, it's in operation. So again, we're moving forward on a pretty good pace. Last quarter, we were still setting the reinforcing steel on the outside basement walls of the dewatering building. And today we have the basement backfilled. The first floor concrete slab is done, and we are starting to set the equipment in the basement. Pretty good progress on the dewatering building. Like I said, the dewatering building takes the sludge, removes the water from it, recirculates the water, but it allows us to take that sludge that is now dried and haul it to the landfill with our own trucks and our own services. Right now, we pay a service to take the liquid sludge away, so this is going to be a big cost saving for us in the future. So a real important building that we're getting closer to get online. The digester 2, the digester removes the methane gas from the sludge, and we run it through the microturbines to create electricity that we use at the plant and heat that we use in the treating process. Last quarter, we were just setting the reinforcing steel in the roof, and as of today, the structure is complete and backfilled. We'll be putting an interior coating on the inside of the structure and the piping and equipment in the next couple weeks, and it will be put into service hopefully within a month. Back in April, we were setting the steel on the digester support building, and now we have all the basement completed, backfilled, and the first floor done. And again, we're setting the equipment in the basement. One thing that I didn't talk to you about last meeting was where we were at on the old aeration basin and the construction of the new final clarifiers. With the operation of the new aeration basins, we didn't need the old ones. So that allowed us to start the demolition on the old aeration basin. So this is just a picture of demolition as of this afternoon. All of that concrete had been removed, and they started removing the floor slab. So the new final clarifiers will be in operation hopefully this year. So that's a quick overview. Financially, we're doing well. We're on schedule, and I've shown you what our progress is. So I can answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
My recollection is when we were talking about the cost of the project, and particularly comparing construction at Santa Rita versus some of the other sites, that one of the major differences was the ability to reuse concrete. And I wanted to, since we just saw a picture of concrete being demolished, I wondered where that is.
Two answers, maybe. The demolished concrete, we're taking up to C&J gravel, and then they crush it even finer and use it on gravel roads. It actually has a lot of the cementitious properties in it. So if you put it down on your gravel road, it will turn back into a softer concrete. So that is getting recycled. We're also saving all of the steel out of the concrete. There's a lot of reinforcing steel. You can see the new stuff we were putting in, there was an equal amount in the old stuff we're taking out. So they save all that, and then they take that to Belt Salvage, who's a local steel and iron recycler. And they're recycling that. They, of course, get money for it, but still it gets back into the recycle system rather than going into the landfill. And then thirdly, I guess, there's a lot of existing good concrete on that plant. It was really built well. And so we're reusing a lot of the existing structure. A lot of the floors and the walls are being reused. We didn't tear them down and rebuild them in place. We used the old ones that were available to us. So
Thank you for that.
if that answers your question.
Mr. Morrison?
Go ahead.
Will you remind us when the odor control component of the facility goes into place?
So the majority of the odor is coming from our primary clarifiers, and the dome on primary clarifier 1 gets set according to the schedule August 6th. So that won't eliminate all of the odor. The actual odor control, where we run it through a carbon filter system, will be installed at the end of the year, the first of next year.
Thank you.
So, but we're getting the domes put in the next month and a half.
Thank you for such a good report, and I just have a quick, probably simple question for you, but since I'm not in project management, it struck me. You suggested that we have currently paid our contractor 60% of
Correct.
the estimated, but we're 55% through. So at what point do you just assume that that will be over? You know, if what we paid him so far is a little bit more than what we think we are in schedule,
Right.
would that then become part of the contingency?
No, so the 60% that we've paid indicates that we're ahead of schedule. So according to the 55% was based on the contract, based on days. And since we've paid the contractor for what he's built
Oh,
a
I
little
see.
bit
Okay.
further than that, that means that his schedule is further along than what the contract is.
Okay.
So he may finish early is kind of what that indicates. Halfway through the project, it's hard to tell, but that's just a good indicator. If we've
Okay.
paid for buildings and pipe that's in the ground, we feel like we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
Thank you for clarifying.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyson. Councilor White and I were on the city council that advocated for just this site, the remodeling of it. And I'm so pleased that money and the time and it's all going as planned. And I really appreciate that. Sometimes rumors get around town. And so I really like having you come to City Council because we deal with facts, not rumors at the Durango City Council. And you present all the facts very well. And we even have lots of pretty pictures. So
Great.
thank you so kindly. We'll see you in another quarter then.
Thank you.
Our next presentation was with Kathy Metz. The City Council asked her to come in July and give us an update on Lake Nighthorse.
Good evening, Mayor Marbury and members of City Council. It's been 3.5 months since we've opened Lake Nighthorse to the public. And so what we wanted to do today is to talk a little bit about how things have been over the course of the summer. And we have a lot to share. We opened Lake Nighthorse on March 31st with a Kids Fish First event. And then the following day was Easter Sunday, April 1st. And we had over 1,000 people that first weekend. So as you know, we don't have a lot of parking spaces, and we were parking cars very creatively that first weekend and didn't turn anyone away. And we were very pleased that so many people came out to celebrate the opening of our new lake. On the 14th of May, we had the dedication of Lake Nighthorse. All of City Council came to that event. We had speakers from the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe, the Bureau of Reclamation, La Plata County, and of course, Mayor Marbury made a nice presentation on behalf of the City Council. Very well received, and it was nice to bring all the parties together to celebrate the success of opening the lake for public recreation on the 14th of May. We started out with just paddling on April 1st, if you recall, and non-motorized hand-launched watercraft. And then on the 19th of May, we began motorized and non-motorized watercraft sharing the lake with Mondays and Wednesdays waitless. So that was the original schedule. Here is the graphic of the lake as we have zoned it. If you might recall, there's about 1,500 surface acres of water that we recreate on at Lake Nighthorse. The no motorized craft area is about 71 or 7% of the total. And the no wake area is, let me get my numbers right here for the council, 31% is the no wake area. And then the remaining 62% would be the open use area on this graphic. And so that sort of shows how the lake is zoned and how it's been operated this summer. We did have some impacts with closures this year. The boat ramp was reconstructed in the month of May and June. We were closed for all motorized boats and anything launched from the boat ramp for 35 days. And then during that same period in June, we closed the lake entirely to all recreation use because of the 416 fire. And so we did have an interruption of our normal service. And that certainly is going to play out in the numbers that I'm going to share with you in terms of use and cost recovery. So far we're seeing a lot more people interested in day use, drop-in use of the lake, about 3 times as many people as are buying annual passes and using those annual passes. We've had just under 15,000 users at Lake Nighthorse since we opened in late March and through the 30th of June. We have seen a lot more diverse activity in July since we've opened everything up. People are realizing the boat ramp is now available, and so we're seeing really strong numbers in the month of July. But we did definitely see a less than what we would anticipate in June because of those impacts with the closure. So that's important for you to understand as we talk about how are we doing financially. We've spent, as of June 30th, over $200,000 in direct expenses related to operating Lake Nighthorse, brought in just over $60,000 in revenue. And so the operating subsidy currently is $151,000. So that means our cost recovery is 28%, not what we had anticipated. And I think that the impacts of what we experienced has directly shown in our numbers in terms of what we're doing financially at Lake Nighthorse. We have made a number of facility improvements. We have 2 courtesy docks that are installed at the boat ramp, and the wave attenuation system has been installed as well. It will be completed next week, and we'll do a final inspection of that. And so this has been a welcomed addition to the recreational users for safety and just separating some of those uses right at the busy boat ramp. We also have a courtesy dock that services the area right by the overflow parking lot. And this overflow lot has brought in trailered and more vehicular parking spaces. And so you might recall that we have a total of 67 trailer parking spaces with the 2 parking lots and 41 cars. So we haven't had a problem with parking people, and usually they come and either catch their bag limit on fish and leave within a couple of hours, or they've had enough recreation and they move on. So we are able to accommodate all the users with the improvements that we have. The other thing that we've brought on this year is Four Corners River Sports is our successful contractor to provide concessions at Lake Nighthorse. So they are renting lots of paddle boards and kayaks, and there are times when they use everything at the lake and they go back to the store and get more supply. And so we've had great success with that, particularly as the weather has turned warmer, and the water is actually very comfortable to fall in if you fall off of your craft, or to swim in. And so people are discovering that about Lake Nighthorse and enjoying that. And the other thing that we have done is we've partnered with a company called Peaks and Tides, and they are providing sailing programs for both children and adults. And we've actually had regattas there, which is a race with a sailboat. And we're providing these kind of programs now at Lake Nighthorse, and they're very well received by our community. You know, this first year has had a fair amount of challenges with the parking lot reconstruction, the fire, the smoke. We saw a lot of people not wanting to come to Lake Nighthorse as they didn't want to recreate anywhere in Durango in the mornings. and it did impact our user numbers, but all in all, if we take everything into consideration, Lake Nighthorse has been a tremendous success of our community. We have heard so many things from our community members that are exploring Lake Nighthorse. Most of the reservoirs in our region of the state are low water, and some of them, including Vallecito, are considering closing. Lake Nighthorse is at full pool, so we have a lot of water and probably some of the best boating opportunities in Southwest Colorado right now, because it's full and there's not a lot of people pulling from the lake for municipal water sources right now. It's only a mile and a half from downtown, and people are learning that Lake Nighthorse is a really special place. So just wanted the council to know that we've certainly had a few curveballs thrown our way this year, but all in all, I think it's been a tremendous success for our community, and we certainly hear that.
Thank you very much. And Counselor?
It's a couple questions. One of the things we kept hearing in advance of opening were concerns from community members about conflicts with motorized users versus other recreationalists. Anything out there yet so far? Anything of concern?
You know, we have not had concerns from members of the public that are using Lake Nighthorse in terms of motorized and non-motorized. You know, it's interesting watching the numbers, and we're watching it more carefully now because we're open to everything to see if we're seeing much of a pattern. But we're actually seeing just as many paddling members of the community on regular days. It's not like we're seeing a big bump of paddling activity on Mondays and Wednesdays. We're seeing high use also on a Tuesday or high use on a Thursday during the week. And so it doesn't seem to be deterring people from coming, even when the motorized have an opportunity to go a little faster. Most of the motorized use we're seeing is fishing. The fish are big. And even little kids with Barbie doll poles can catch fish. So it just tells you these fish are hungry and they'll bite at anything. What was your other question?
How often will we get an update like this from here on
Whenever
out?
the council is interested in hearing information, we're
I think it
happy
might be
to provide
good,
it.
end of the summer or sometime after
End of the
September.
summer and
because
talk about.
given all the issues, I don't know that you have data that's relevant at this point based on the closures. I'd certainly love to see it. And then just anecdotally, I was going to tell you, I had to drive by Ridgeway State Reservoir today, and it's almost out of water. They're lowering the water. They say it's going down 6 feet a day right now, and they're closing the use of sailing and other motorized sports there as well. So, you know, your information, I think, is dead on. So we might get more boaters here from that part of the state.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Have you seen, has there been any negative comments about, like, for example, not being able to have motorized craft on Mondays and Wednesdays? Have you been fielding any of that?
We can have motorized craft on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Just no wake, right.
But they can't have wake. And we have heard comments that people had planned to come out to the lake on a Monday and then they decide not to because they've got their family and they want to be able to go a little faster with their activities. And so they choose not to come. Those motorized individuals choose not to come because it's wakeless.
So you have heard that. And then
We
on the
have
flip
heard
side, comments for the Quiet Lake advocates that.
I think what they're finding is that there's so much available opportunity there with the zones, and generally the lake is pretty calm in the mornings, and then it's very windy, or has been this year anyway, very windy as the day progresses, and so everyone, even on a wakeless day, is experiencing waves in the afternoon and
Right,
night.
okay. And then I just had a question with staffing. How is that going? I know this is a big project for Parks and Rec to take on.
It has been, and
Yeah.
so we have 3 full-time employees that work at Lake Nighthorse, and then
Okay.
several part-time. We've sent a number of staff members, about a dozen, to the Aquatic Nuisance Species Inspector Program. And so the state is very pleased with the inspection process that we've initiated, and they're doing a great job.
And we have a boat out there circling.
We do, and
Yeah.
that's the Bureau of Reclamation. It's a Parker boat, and the Bureau of Reclamation has provided that to the city for our use to patrol. And we also work with the police department if any time they need to get on the water to help us with a law enforcement issue on the water. We're able to bring them out as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I just wish, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have a remark, a lone anecdote but happened to have a conversation sometime in the last week with one of the most ardent advocates of a no-wake lake. And she went up there and discovered how big the no motorized area actually is. So I think that was a pleasant surprise on that part, and I think it's hopeful for the overall operation.
Yeah, I've also heard that people thought it was too far to that west side.
Yeah.
And so many people I'm talking to, you know, Durango is a very strong recreational community, and people are easily able to get to that west side and get to that larger area of no wake, and they're enjoying that if they want to get away from the motorized use, even during days when both uses are allowed.
And they'll just go along the rim?
They just go along the edge at which you have to be no wake close to the shore anyway, 150 feet off the shore.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I wish Fred Krager could be here because I know he'd be smiling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you that knew him and what an advocate he was, and you can tell I have a smile on my face just remembering Fred. So we're so pleased that all of this is, you know, it's all falling into place. So I'm very happy that I'm still on City Council and that it opened. And so we're ready to go. Thank you very much for your report. We'll see you at the end of summer.
Sounds good.
So we're going to be moving now into the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is intended to allow the City Council by a single motion to approve matters that are considered routine or non-controversial. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered under agenda item 6. May we have a review, please?
Item 4.1 through 4.3 are approval of minutes. 4.1, the special meeting of June 12th, 2018. 4.2, the study session of June 12th, 2018. 4.3, the regular meeting of June 18th, 2018. Items 4.4 through 4.9 are discussion and possible action items. 4.4 concerns Resolution R 2018-28, appointing Kevin Hall to represent the City of Durango on the Regional Housing Alliance of La Plata County Board of Directors. 4.5 concerns the order of items on the City Council agenda, specifically moving council reports and actions to the last item on the council agenda. 4.6 concerns Resolution R 2018-29, accepting the Signet addition annexation petition and setting the public hearing and annexation, initial zoning, and conceptual plan development review for August 21, 2018. 4.7 concerns the approval of the ground lease agreement between the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company and the City of Durango, Colorado. 4.8 concerns the Mountain Trace Townhomes Building M final as-built plat. 4.9 concerns Resolution R 2018-30, authorizing additional appropriation to the general fund for an Internet Crimes Against Children grant. Items 4.10 and 4.11 are requests for public hearings with a proposed date of August 7th, 2018. 4.10 is to consider the preliminary plan approval for the Crater Lot 2R subdivision. 4.11 is to consider the River Oaks Duplex Number 2 Townhomes preliminary plat. Item 4.12 and 4.13 are final approval of ordinances. 4.12 is Ordinance O 2018-14, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durango by repealing Section 15-54F of the code related to removal of limits on jury trials in municipal court and declaring an effective date. And 4.13 is Ordinance O 2018-15, granting an easement over a portion of city-owned property to La Plata Electric Association, Inc. to install new service to 1111 Camino del Rio and declaring an effective date.
Thank you. Did any counselor want to remove a consent item?
Mayor, I don't want to remove any item, but I do need to announce to the council that I will not be voting on item 4.6 tonight if we approve the consent agenda. I will in the future be recusing myself from anything related to that particular subject matter. One of the members of that party, I have a business relationship with him, so I'll have to recuse myself from the vote.
Thank you very much. With that, anyone else? I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will look for direction from the city attorney, but I think, would it be appropriate to pull item 4.6 just to have a separate vote?
We could do that for, I think with the announcement that he's not going to vote on that item, that's sufficient.
Okay.
Okay.
In that case, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Counselor Youssef?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Bettine?
Yes.
Mayor Marbury?
Yes. We're moving into the public participation. This section of the agenda is set aside for the public to provide comments or ask questions regarding items that do not otherwise appear on the agenda. City Council will not respond to questions from the dais. Citizens should address their comments directly to City Council. City Manager, would you get the sign-in sheet for me, please, sir? Citizens wishing to speak during this section of the agenda should have signed in prior to the start of the meeting, identifying their name and address on the form. Citizens will be called individually by name by the mayor to come to the podium to address the City Council. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The city manager will signal 30 seconds remaining by raising his hand. Any audio-visual materials, thank you, will be provided to the city clerk on or before noon of the day of the meeting. Mr. Walsworth, please.
My name is Tim Walsworth. Pardon me, I'm the Executive Director of the Business Improvement District, and I live at 1880 West 2nd Avenue. And I'm here today to plant a little seed with council for something on the 2019 budget. I understand all that's starting soon. I know it's a long, laborious process. And I'm going to ask that you consider one thing, and that's a safe crossing of Camino del Rio to connect downtown to the river trail. And I really, and BID really thinks about this as an economic development project. It can be funded by the half-cent sales tax that the voters extended just a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, this long-needed and awaited project has been delayed. Most recently, it was set to start in 2017, but now it's been pushed out to not starting until 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Bottom line for me, allowing people a safe crossing of Camino puts more people in downtown, more people, more sales tax. And we know we need that in these times and all these things that you guys are facing. So I just ask that you please consider this in your budget work over the coming months, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Cross.
Hello, council members, mayor. I am Jason Cross. I'm on the Planning Commission. I am an architect designer and a master's degree in architecture focused on digital information planning in large-scale interior and exterior environments. I am also in support of the CUP, the underpass, and from my personal investigation, I looked at data and information that was available through local GIS and other information, and it seems to me the current solution is keyed on, first of all, HAWK, which is high-intensity activated crosswalk. The crosswalk is not capable of ramping up for future use. If you look at the data for future use, we're looking at 1135, 111 Main, possibly 1401, and these are all on both sides of Main and Camino. Currently, there is no interaction as far as on either side to safely get across without impeding traffic. And so you have pedestrians in conflict with the actual automotive traffic. And then the closest way to get across, if you go to the south, is almost a quarter of a mile away, where there's actually safe thoroughfare across that is actually timed with traffic. So those concerns going across 9th Street is actually relatively safe because it actually goes with the flow of traffic. It's at this particular point where it's dangerous, and if you go to the north at all, then the other conflict is Camino and Main at 14th, and there is no congruent orthogonal intersection there. That is another dangerous intersection, and where if you're going south on Main to Camino, you have the two arrows that are variable arrows, which allow people to then fly around each other where there's actually the pedestrian crossing. So the Camino as it is, the HAWK is not sustainable for going forward, and it actually exacerbates the traffic concern, the primary traffic concern in the central part of our town. So with that being said, I think it is a dire opportunity for us to take advantage of investing in this underpass and taking, making the sort of autonomous pedestrian routes fully separate from the automotive and basically clearing the last interface of that conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Feeney?
Hi, I'm Rick Feeney, 1201 Main Avenue, and you probably guessed that I was here for this this discussion. I have some things to hand out to you guys because I only have 3 minutes. So I just wanted to say that this is something that's you know, been on the radar for going on 20 years. I think the fact that it has a dedicated tax for trails, open space, multimodal, that this could be not considered not a wicked problem because it's not funded from the general fund, but it's from the dedicated tax. And Ms. Kathy Metz right there is a genius at getting grants that helps to supplement that money. So I think the price is you know, or the funding is not that great of a deal. And somebody left their phone up here. And in light of current events, I think the Camino Underpass, aka the CUP, of the CUP can help energize the CBD, and we keep profits in town. Not to mention the taxes. I mean, people, if they're looking for a parking spot, if they could walk, they won't need a parking spot. But if they feel like, oh, there's no parking downtown, I can't get there very easily on foot, I'll drive out to Walmart, our Home Depot, our Office Depot. Those funds go out of town. They don't stay in with the people that own the small businesses downtown. It's been on the radar since 20 years, and as Tim said, it's now scheduled for 2022. We would hope that would be raised short. And of course, parking and safety, vitalization of Main Street up to 12th Street is a good idea. Recent 2-hour survey said that there were 58 pedestrians and 39 bikes in a 2-hour period. There weren't any accidents. I don't know if Mr. Peters is in town, is in attendance, but he was actually hit crossing there on his bicycle, and he's 70+ years old. He's my next door neighbor, and he's lucky he's alive. There's been discussion about locations. I think I'm in total agreement that two locations would be a very good idea. But which one would be the easiest, fastest, cheapest to facilitate? And it's the one at 12th Street, because on the west side, the city owns all the property. On the east side, it's either the train or CDOT or somebody. I'm not sure who that is, but I have talked with the train, and of course we need to talk to them again and again. But the word that I've gotten from an engineer is that if you're 9 feet off the west rail, that's what their concern is. And that's my 3 minutes, but I can't put it on. But I say anyway. So, and I guess the last thing is that there's the comment about the train station, the fire station, and I think Mr. LeBlanc has gotten an email from the fire chief saying that that's not a deterrent, and if you look at the map that I've drawn, then you turn right and you turn left once you get underneath Camino, and whatever anybody wants to do with that property would be great. Bob Allen says that an underpass there, if there was going to be sold for a hotel or something, that it would be a huge benefit and improve the price. So we only need 3 votes.
Thank you. Antonia Clark.
My name is Antonia Clark. I live at 589 County Road 220, and I own Towatin Gallery along with my family on 9th Street in Durango. I'm here to encourage you to fund the underpass at Camino and 12th Street sooner rather than later. The city of Durango, through the Trails and Open Space tax, has provided local residents and visitors with an incredible number of wonderful facilities and trails. This is all great, but we now have a lot of trails and a lot of facilities, and in my mind, the primary responsibility of the city is to provide infrastructure and safety to its citizens. The pedestrian light at Camino and 12th is hardly adequate or safe. It is a dangerous pedestrian crossing. I personally would never use it for that very reason. I often see parents step into that intersection with their young children, and I fear for their safety. It's hard for me to understand why the city would ignore such a situation or postpone a safe solution. I read some months ago that the city is considering an underpass at the 550 intersection by Home Depot. I drive through that intersection several times a day and can tell you the pedestrian and cycling traffic there pales in comparison to the pedestrian and cycling traffic at Camino and 12th. Plus, there's already a full-fledged stoplight and pedestrian crosswalk at that intersection. While it would be nice to eventually have an underpass connecting the pedestrian trail from Three Springs to the trail, River Trail, it's not necessary. But currently, you cannot safely cross from the River Trail to downtown Durango except at 9th Street. A lot of people do not use the 9th Street crosswalk. To postpone the construction of an underpass at Camino and 12th is, in my opinion, negligent and ignores the city's responsibility and need to protect people's lives. Beyond the obvious safety benefits, this underpass would also reduce vehicular traffic into the central business district if working people and shoppers could indeed feel like they could cross Camino del Rio safely. And it would have a positive economic impact, as Tim said, on the central business district and the city as a whole. And it would provide opportunities for people who live on the west side of Main Street, which is a lot of people, to safely walk or ride their bicycles to the central business district, leaving their cars at home, reducing traffic, reducing parking problems, and it would be a great benefit to our city. So just as you have funded the better lighting in the central business district in order to provide more pedestrian safety, I urge you to fund this project.
Thank you. Jeff Blecker.
Hi, is it okay we both come up here?
Of course. Just state your name and address.
Okay, Jeff and Maria Bleeker, we are at 15 Falcon Way in Durango. By way of introduction, we are new to Durango. We moved here a few months ago because we fell in love with the community. We're retired business owners from Tucson, and we're active in the community. We're already Rotary Club members, and we would like to do our part to help. We are here to address a concern with the homeless problem here in Durango. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this. We realize that there are truly needy people here in Durango whom we understand need help, and we would like to be involved in that effort to the extent that we can. We have met with Ann Morse at MANA to try and understand her challenges and have volunteered to help her over there. As new members of the community, we were surprised and somewhat alarmed to see the large number of transients that have tended to congregate and in some ways take over Snyder and Garden Schwartz Park, as well as the River Trail and downtown. As we do our daily walks with our dogs down through the park, on the River Trail and downtown, we routinely come across police and emergency personnel who are called to respond to problems caused by the people who come to Durango from places like Farmington, locations in Arizona, and various reservations. In speaking with the police, we were told that they are unable to arrest people who are drunk, unruly, openly drinking in public, and disorderly. We have been told by them that the law does not allow for them to take legal action against this bad and destructive behavior. As such, the police seem to be limited to just asking these people to move on or behave, or maybe issue a ticket, which will never be paid. Several police and paramedics have told us that a solid 30% of their calls are to respond to drunken, disorderly transients. It is clear to us that these public servants are frustrated, as are business owners and many residents. We witnessed one encounter where a drunken man was making a scene on the River Trail, and we counted 7 public servants who responded. 4 paramedics, 3 police officers responded to the scene. The man was openly drinking and belligerent. All the police could do was ask him to move on. The man said, "I know my rights, call 911." This not only costs the community a fortune, but also empowers others to know that they can get away with the same thing, and it's unacceptable. By having this type of lax enforcement policy, these transients who seek to come to Durango to take advantage of your good nature become emboldened. Word gets out and more people come. We should save our limited resources for members of our community that truly need our help. As I have said, we are sympathetic to the truly needy. Our sympathies also lie with the tax-paying citizens, business owners of Durango, and for the tourists who come here, spend their money, expecting a safe place to enjoy their vacation. We understand that this has been an ongoing issue up for discussion. However, the problem seems to be getting worse. We certainly plan to do our part to help, and we urge the council to take a serious look at this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Lockwood.
I have a handout for everyone at the dais here. I'll refer to that in a minute. My name is Frank Lockwood. I'm here at the invitation of the mayor. Thank you, Mayor Marbury, to talk about the state of tourism in Durango, I think based upon the setback that we had because of the fire. So, but I also ran in, she told me I had 3 minutes, but I ran into Ron LeBlanc today, who told me he would give me 2 extra minutes, perhaps from some of his presentation time, but I will talk fast. Here we go. The first thing is...
Time's up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I was asked by journalists, I received phone calls from Albuquerque, USA Today, Denver Post, very many other places, Colorado Sun, about the economic effect of the fire on Durango, and I had no idea, so I did a quick study by calling about 13 businesses, tourism-affected businesses in downtown Durango, and talked them into revealing confidential information to me upon protecting their names, so I could get some idea as to where they were. And I did simply have them give me a number that was the measurement of business difference, a drop, if any, of their business from June 2018 as compared to June 2017. So I did a quick study. I will repeat this in July because things may change. Basically, I had a small fast food restaurant that was down 10% for the month of June. As, again, these are all as compared to June 2017. A fine dining restaurant down 15 to 17%. A large hotel had no occupancy loss whatsoever, but they did reduce their average daily rate by 9%. The train had 26,000 less tickets for the month as compared to June of 2017. There was one retail restaurant that was down 35%. That was the largest. An art gallery down 18%. An outdoor activity business down 40%. That was a river rafting business. They were hit really hard. Another major hotel in town was up 9% from a year ago, and their revenue was up 14%. They were just booked and they had no problem. A small hotel down 20%. Main Avenue retail establishment down 22%. A bar and tavern in town was down 9%. Mexican restaurant down 9%. And a high-end hotel down 12.5%. Many of these businesses, not to paint a rosy picture, but many of these businesses were able to mitigate some of those revenue losses by cutting back on employee time and food orders and so on and so forth. And that will lead to a discussion later on about who was really hurt. And as we know, that was a lot of employees who were laid off or furloughed. Now for the good news. Here are the things that we have done and are doing and will be doing to mitigate the problems caused by the fire here. First of all, I'm going to Outdoor Retailer next week, which will be held for the first time on their summer session in the state of Colorado. Colorado kidnapped that from Utah, as you know. It is one of the largest trade shows in the United States. There's going to be 35 to 40,000 people there. I will be going there, attending some media receptions, handing out some Animas Chocolate Company bars to each one of those media people, and handing out that press release that you see. Press releases many times are merely, you can ask Mary Shin about this, sometimes what we do is we write the article for the media people, make it easier for them to do. Give some information on there, and you'll see on page 2, there's a nice little blurb about, and photo about Lake Nighthorse. I'm very ambivalent about the news about Lake Nighthorse and how nice it is, because I love it there, and I'm afraid that in a couple of years we're going to have thousands of people at Lake Nighthorse. So I'd like to keep it all for myself, but then again, I run tourism. Okay. Secondly, with our media stuff, what has happened in the past 6 weeks is there's been an article about Durango about the train museum. And that was in USA Today, and that was done by a journalist that we brought here to Durango, that Dato brought here to Durango. 5280 magazine, that's Denver's big magazine. Guide to the Four Corners, that article was written by us. Third, Vine Pair magazine did an article about the Brew Train, and also the Albuquerque Journal did a 2-part thing. That's 3 minutes? Oh, really good.
It's more, but...
Okay, thank you. And then the Albuquerque Journal did a 2-part series on Durango. Those last 2 articles were by journalists that we kidnapped from Aramark who were coming to Mesa Verde. We put them on the train on the inaugural ride with Mr. Harper over there. They got charmed by Durango and wrote articles about us. That was a fabulous experience. We spent a lot of time talking with them and feeding them Bloody Marys. Okay. Secondly, the Mesa Verde Ranger-led tour tickets. This is sort of little known in Durango, but we're now selling Ranger-led tour tickets out of the Welcome Center. I was hoping that we would sell 15,000 tickets for the year. We have sold 13,000 already, I should say, for the season. We've sold 13,000 tickets already. 75% of these people, according to our surveys, were people who were sent here by the National Park Service in Mesa Verde. That means those are 75% of those people are new people who came to Durango, and we sold about 250 tickets a day during the entire month of June while the fire was going on. Those people stayed here, had dinner here, so on and so forth. So we think that greatly mitigated, sort of an under the radar mitigation of the effects of the fire. We think that's only going to get better. I have developed a relationship with the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and the Sky Ute Casino. They are holding the Shoshone Nation reunion out there this weekend. 350 hotel rooms for the Shoshone Nation people are going to be occupied here in Durango, not out at the Sky Ute Casino, because there's too many people out there. We've simply discovered they have a huge facility for conferences and not enough hotel rooms. So we've developed a relationship to jointly sponsor some conferences out there, and we get all the hotel rooms here and all the people staying for dinner at night. That's ongoing. That's only going to get better. I met with your city manager earlier this week. He has agreed to provide some financial support to the International Inbound Travel Association. These are a group of receptives. These are people who host mostly European travelers when they get to the United States. The 25 largest businesses are going to be coming to Durango next year. Wind it up. Oh boy. There's too much happening. Our fire recovery efforts are in full force. We have rerouted about $20,000 in expenditures. We work with Budget Travel, one of the largest travel sites in the United States, who named Durango, by the way, the coolest, one of the 10 coolest towns in America. We're going to be spending $18,000 with them because their site, they're a division of the Lonely Planet Travel Journal. Their site gets 500,000 unique hits a month on it, and we're going to be doing what's called some native advertising on there. That's ads designed to make people think they're really articles. Sunset Magazine, we bought a half a page of Sunset Magazine as well, which is going to be in the Northwest and Western version of that. And we participated in community help to help people who were unemployed. Along with the Community Foundation, we put that system together. Our public relations person put together a website that took in all the applications, raised $300,000, gave $100,000 away to people whose jobs were laid off. We are now in stage 2 of that. with the community foundation to give another $100,000 to people who had evacuated, and then the remaining $100,000 is going to be aimed towards small businesses who suffered from the effects of the fire. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, and you're welcome to come back at our next meeting on August the 7th.
Okay.
And give us another 3-minute update.
We'll have to negotiate about the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm a believer in good news. And so Frank Lockwood always has a lot of good news that I think we needed to hear in the community. With that, I'm going to close public participation, and we are moving into item 9.2.1, which is a quasi-judicial hearing. So this will give people an opportunity if they'd like to leave. Thank you very much for attending the council meeting.
So I think we approved an item on the consent agenda to move council reports and actions to the end of the agenda.
Yes.
So I assume
it's moving.
It is moving. It is moving
yes.
Today.
Yes.
Right.
It needs to be changed on the document over there, but it will be. We'll be reporting later.
Yep.
So with that in mind, then. 9.2.1 is a public hearing to consider the Escalante Village annexation, initial zoning, and conceptual development plan. Ms. Vandergriff? In discussion right now. Okay.
1 second. Sorry.
That's all right.
Well, we're discussing the applicant's not here, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
So,
Well, I don't think he has to be here.
no, that's what I just said, he's not here.
Right, he doesn't have to be here.
So if you feel that you could go on without him being here, I'll be happy to proceed.
Yes, let's go on.
Thank you, sorry for the delay. Thank you.
That's all right.
Mayor.
Questions have to be answered.
And council. So this is the Escalante Village Development. The request is from Bob Lieb, representing Durango Threadworks, for the annexation and initial zoning of a planned development of 1.77 acre parcel at 224 Baker Lane, and also a review of the conceptual development plan to create a tiny home rental park for up to 24 units. The property is located off of Baker Lane, and just to give us some references, this is Walmart, this is Escalante Middle School, and it's this parcel right here, and a little closer view, so you can see it. Properties to the north include Nelson Electric, and then they have a home also on that property. To the northeast is the Durango Dance, is in the old, this old UPS building, and Tractor Supplies to the northeast also. To the south is Escalante Middle School. And the property to the west is basically the Animas River, and then public property owned by both the city and some property owned by La Plata County. And this also shows you that the property is pretty flat. This is a comprehensive plan. The city changed the designation of this property plus the 2 properties to the north in 2017, changing them from commercial to residential high density to allow for this sort of a project and have more additional housing in the city. The property is an enclave. It's not within the city limits. That's why it doesn't have any zoning shown on it. So the annexation requirements we have meet certain statutory requirements. The first is contiguity. The property must be 1/6 contiguous. This property is 49% contiguous. A plan needs to be in place that we have the city's 2017 comprehensive plan that identifies this as an area that we should grow. The petition, the city council accepted the petition on June 5th. The annexation impact report was not required because this is less than a 10-acre site. And a community of interest needs to be shown, and that is also outlined in our comprehensive plan, that this is within the community's interest. And the mileage limitation, this is actually an enclave, so there's no issue with mileage limitations. The property, just to show you where it's contiguous along this what eastern boundary along a lot of Baker Lane, and then on the entire western boundary are all adjacent to the city limits. This is a slope map that just shows you it's a relatively flat parcel. There is a little bit of slope that goes down towards the river. This is the city's river trail, and it goes through the western portion of this property, and the city has an easement. The tiny homes, this is what is being proposed. These are actually homes that the applicant has purchased. They're actually sitting out on the property. It's not approved, but they're just storing them for right now. These homes were at the Home and Ranch show, so you might have had an opportunity to go into them. So this is his conceptual plan that went to Planning Commission. It has 24 units shown. It's a little hard to see, but they're small units. They have 2 parking spaces in front of each one. These little squares are movable planters. The idea behind movable planters. All the details we'll get into a lot more at a preliminary plan phase, but this is his conceptual plan. Also includes some mini storage kind of units in the middle. He's got some community amenities over on the one side. I know this is a hard plan to read, but he's got some community amenities also, and then a maintenance area. Planning Commission had a few comments, and I think he's incorporating a lot of those changes in what would come before you at preliminary if the conceptual plan gets approved. But some of the comments included maybe less units and more storage are the 2 things that they came up with. But this is a plan that was approved. It is being advanced. Again, these are the units here, the different tiny home units, the parking spaces in front. This is an emergency access road. They are going to improve Baker Lane and this cul-de-sac are both going to be improved as a part of this project. There's a community garden proposed. There's an amenity area that will either be a playground or like a picnic area, depending on residents' desires. And then there's the stormwater retention pond, and they're looking at having some seat walls and other things that incorporated into that to try to add an additional amenity. So the review criteria from the city code for comprehensive plan, or for the conceptual development plan and the PD zone involve that it meets the objectives of the comprehensive plan and other adopted plans for the city, that it's compatible with development and densities in the area or establishes a more desirable pattern, that there's adequate public services, that the design of the amenities provide for a high quality environment, that the streets that provide access have the capacity to serve, that hazard areas, steep slopes, and ridgelines are appropriately protected, and the site design is energy efficient, solar oriented, and water wise. And we do believe that this project at this conceptual level stage does meet all this review criteria. As for the process, this was at the Planning Commission hearing on May 21st. The Planning Commission voted 4-0 in favor of the project. They did have a few comments that the applicant is addressing. And then the City Council accepted the petition for annexation on June 5th. Fiscal impact, the city already provides water service to the area. The property is immediately adjacent to the city limits, and the cost of extending other city services should be relatively negligible. And the city will receive a slight increase in property tax revenues. As for applicability to the comprehensive plan, the annexation and zoning of this property for residential use was contemplated, as I stated previously, with the adoption of the 2017 comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan also has a number of policies about addressing annexation, including annexing contiguous areas that have municipal services and enclaves. And the creation of the tiny home subdivision also meets specific housing objections and policies that include providing for a variety of housing types and incentivizes the construction of smaller units. And just to clarify, this isn't really a subdivision. I probably shouldn't have used that word in that. But in summary, staff is supportive of this annexation and initial zoning. The property proposed for annexation can be found to meet all the statutory requirements for annexation, and it can be serviced and assimilated into the city limits. The PD zone is in conformance with the comprehensive plan designation and the anticipated use. City staff is also supportive of the conceptual development plan that we feel meets the PD criteria of the Land Use and Development Code, and it does create a new type of development specifically for tiny homes within the city that we currently don't have, and the project is consistent to the density established by the comprehensive plan. So it is a recommendation of the Planning Commission that the City Council by motion approve the Escalante Village annexation and initial zoning of PD and approve the Plan Development Conceptual Development Plan with findings and conditions as reflected in the Planning Commission minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't believe anyone signed up to comment at this time, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Just maybe you could just advise me relative to the comprehensive plan and the recently passed housing plan. Is there anything in there that would incentivize the density of a parcel like this in what I think would be a higher density zone to a higher density than what's being proposed by the development here, where you're getting 24 units, small units that might accommodate a couple people max, so 48 people on site potentially. And this may be even outside of the boundaries of this particular approval. I'm more or less curious because at 1.8 acres, I just wonder if there's a higher, better use for this particular site.
It is possible to put more units on the site. That is something that can be done and incentivized in other locations. This is the applicant's request. He really believes strongly, and I wish he was here to explain his vision, but he believes very strongly that this is a need that's in the community that isn't met now, and it's offering an opportunity for people to own a home, even if they don't own the land that it's on, or rent. He's going to have some of his units will actually be rental units. So, and I heard him mention that this was a good way for people to see if they like tiny living, if that's something that really fits them, if they rent a unit and make that determination. So I thought that was an interesting concept too. So it's his, it's their request. It meets our code, it meets our comp plan. So there really isn't any way to not allow a different type of unit at this location unless you just feel it's not appropriate. As far as incentivizing other locations or other property or even the properties around here, that's something that can be looked at. That I don't think there's much in the code right now except for increasing the density, which we did through the comp plan. And
this meets those density increases.
It's about 14 units to the acre. So it does meet the density, which is 12 to 24.
Okay, that's kind of what I was looking for. And then the other question is relative to this housing type, because the houses potentially would be able to be purchased as a home. Would the city then have to change its designation in terms of how you would look at a tiny house?
In this location, they'll all be rentals. There'll be rentals on the property, or there'll be the rentals that you rent the house and the lot, or you bring your own tiny home in and place it on the lot. So this isn't going to be a home ownership as far as the property is concerned. So that's part of the reason it's a planned development. We don't have those regulations in our code right now. We don't address tiny homes really in the code.
You won't have to, because of the nature of the structure of this, you won't have to address this in the code as a tiny home, is that right?
Yeah, so we plan to address tiny homes in the code, and this is we're doing this as a planned development. We're going to create regs for this type of a rental park based on how we're working through this process. We'll create probably at the same time subdivision requirements for the smaller lots that fit this sort of, where you can buy your own lot, home ownership. And then there's also a really big interest in allowing these as maybe ADUs in the community or something along that line. And so I think that will also begin that process and looking at it. Right now, it can be in the community, but it has to be on a permanent foundation, it has to be hooked up to water and sewer. So that's sort of what limits some people from wanting to put these in their, on their property, or can't. They currently can go into mobile home parks, and we do have them in mobile home parks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Have we reached out to, or have we been contacted by 9R School regarding the adjacent boundary? Is that, Escalante?
That is Escalante.
Yeah.
They received a legal notice for it, and we haven't talked to them specifically, but I know that Mr. Lieb has been in contact with them because they've got some improvements that they're going to do, and there's some joint improvements on the road at Baker Lane, and so I know they've had some conversations, and in fact, he purchased part of this property from 9R. So I know that there's some communication, but the city hasn't been involved
as far as potential maybe barriers or separate?
It's across the street.
Yeah.
You know, there's a full cul-de-sac. The trail alignment's kind of on the edge. So it's pretty separated.
It's the back of, I've been there.
Yeah,
And I've been
it's the
to
back of the school.
it's the back of the school. I've been to the tiny home lots and walked around and observed, and it's on the back side of the school, so students wouldn't be there.
Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't be on that side.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
They don't do anything out there, okay.
No, they don't. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the Escalante Village annexation and initial zoning of PD and approve the plan development, conceptual development plan with findings and conditions as reflected in the Planning Commission minutes.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef,
Yes.
Councilor Bateen,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Mayor Marbury.
Yes. Moving to item 9.2.2, a public hearing to consider an ordinance granting a utility easement to Cedar Networks to install fiber optic conduit on Subtle Street in Bodo Park. Mr. Nelson.
This is a fairly routine request regarding the use of a strip of what was designated as Greenbelt in the Bodo Industrial Branches area for fiber optic to serve businesses out there. I understand that there's already utilities of various sorts in that zone, so this would not be something that would impact the property any further. So staff is recommending that the council do take action to authorize staff to enter documents to convey a fiber optic easement to Cedar Networks.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Seeing no one here to address it, I'm going to close the public testimony. Any questions from council?
It's my assumption that the Cedar Networks is interested then in providing high-speed internet along those number of properties that abut that easement.
That's my understanding, and I have not spoken to them directly, but that's my understanding is that they want to provide service in that area.
Why else would they do it?
Why else would they do it?
If that's the only question, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion from council.
I'm not exactly sure.
I'll get the document here.
Okay.
I will move that we direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for first reading at the next regularly scheduled city council meeting, authorizing the granting of a utility easement to Cedar Networks to install fiber optic conduit on Subtle Street.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Bateen,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef,
Yes.
Mayor Marbury.
Yes. And we're moving into council reports and actions. And Councilor Bateen?
I'll pass, thank you.
I just had a quick one that I thought you guys might be interested. At the Alliance investor meeting, Rogers Allneritis informed us that they have picked the date for the summit. Tickets go on sale for the summit on August 3rd, and it is a full-day summit on October 24th. They have a gentleman by the name of Greg Bunch speaking. He's from University of Chicago, speaking on VUCA, which is a learning mindset to survive chaos. Stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. They have a very interesting lunchtime panel with real-time uncertainty, resilience of tourism. Train will be there, the ski area will be there, and mountain studies representing Silverton. So that was interesting. Yeah, mark your calendar for that date, October 24th.
Thank you.
I think I already have it on.
Good.
I have not missed that since I've been on the council.
That's
I've always found it to be a very rewarding meeting. I do have one thing. There's been a lot of things that have gone on since in the 4 weeks since our last meeting. I expect the mayor may mention one or two of them. I just want to emphasize that I'm still doing Here to Here Thursday mornings at 9, unless I have a conflicting meeting, which I do this Thursday. So wait a week and I'll be there. yesterday and today, I had an extremely interesting experience participating in a vulnerability, consequences, and adaptation planning scenario exercise conducted by the Western Water Assessment. In that, I was joined by staff from the Utilities Department, Levi Lloyd, Keith Doherty, and Jared Biggs, as well as Scott Shine from Planning and Scott McLean from Parks and Rec, and John Ballou and Paul O'Neill, the chair and the vice chair of the Utilities Commission. It was a really, really interesting exercise. We were basically brainstorming about consequences and potential actions the city could take in the case of both drought and extreme precipitation events. These are things that we already deal with, but under scenarios of climate change, they both get worse. And so it was a really, really useful exercise. And there's a map that they were creating for us in real time of situations, consequences, and possible actions. That report, they're promising to be available to us within about a month, and it should be of very great interest to the council and to staff planning going forward. I just want to commend the manager and the director of the utilities program for prioritizing the staff time. There were 5 staff members for 8 hours. So there was a person week of staff time committed to this, and I think it was absolutely worthwhile. And once again, I actually started the meeting as we did our introduction by complimenting the quality of our staff, and the event just underscored that. We've got really, really good people working and stuff. But it was, that was an event that was worth reporting on, and at least more than a sentence.
City manager?
Yes. I have a slide.
Yes, sir.
What happened? They were here a minute ago.
It's not there.
Technology is so fun.
I think help is on the way.
Looks like you got it. Yeah. Thanks. All right, sorry about that. Okay, the mayor asked me to present the sales tax and lodgers tax data, and also to give an update on where we are in the current fiscal year. So, so to explain this graphic, this has columns for every month for the years 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And if you look at those columns, it becomes apparent that the summer is our busy season. So you'll see the July, August, September, and October, actually. October's a big month. And everything is always a month behind. So when you look at the January numbers, that reflects December sales. And then also the October numbers reflect September sales. And that's usually the beginning of fall. We get a lot of tourists here. We switch the type of tourists. We go from the school children with their parents. They go back to school, and then we get the empty nesters and retired people that come in September, and people want to see the fall colors. So I want to explain the lines in a minute, but I want to start with some good news, and that I'm reading from the June report. So these numbers reflect May sales. And sales tax was up 6.8%. So I'll repeat that, 6.8%, which brings the year-to-date at 3.8. So January through June on this chart, we are up 3.8%. June 1 was the 416 fire. The train was closed for 41 days. So we will see the July numbers reflect the fire and the impact on the fire. I was encouraged with what Mr. Lockwood said, although the newspaper had him as Frank Underwood, for those of you who watch House of Cards. Lodger's tax was up 8.8%, and year-to-date was 4.6%. So now back to the chart that's on the screen. The orange or yellow line reflects our 2018 budget, and we had predicted no increase. And then the blue line that continues is the revised budget. I say continues, I'm going from June through the end of the year. We're trying to estimate what impact the fire had. And I've heard, I heard Mr. Lockwood say there were 25,000 fewer train riders. I believe the number of cancellations was approaching 40,000. So there were some people who rode the diesel train, but a significant number of cancellations. So the gap between the yellow line and the blue line reflects our approved budget, which is the higher line, one further up on the sheet, and the revised budget is the lower blue line. And what the finance director did is look back to the Missionary Ridge experience and what happened when that fire occurred. The train was down 40 days. Now, I wasn't here at the time, but the train was down 40 days and had some significant cash flow issues. So very similar to what Mr. Harper is facing right now. So the gap between those two lines is the amount of money we have to make up. So the challenge for the staff is the fourth Tuesday of September is a study session that I will present to you the 2019 budget. So we have to come up with a good number on what that gap is and work with the department directors to fix the 2018 budget. And that provides the basis for where we go in 19. So that's adds a little wrinkle. We were doing really well. I would have loved to tell you we're up 6.8%. We're putting money away in the bank. Life is good. But you know, life can change on a dime, and here we are. I am encouraged by what Frank reported tonight in terms of what the businesses did to keep their bottom lines on the black side. That doesn't mean our revenues were going to be better because they reflect fewer sales. I do anecdotally observe that a lot of people were downtown during June, and I think the mayor and I were sharing stories about talking to visitors. So we'll just have to wait and see. We should have the June numbers reported to the council sometime around the 10th of August. Because the money's collected in June, it's remitted to the city in July, and then it takes several weeks for all of that to trickle in and for the finance department to tally it up. So by the 10th of August, we should know what the experience was in June. And that's going to inform what I do with the department heads. So on the 10th of August, between the 10th of August and the 31st of August, we may have to really shuffle and balance how to balance that general fund. Because it takes us a couple weeks to assemble a budget and get it in a format to give it to the council, which would be that fourth Tuesday in September. So there'll be a lot of scrambling going on. I think when I say scrambling, I'm talking about the general fund. Anything that's reliant on sales tax. Water, sewer, airport, transit, for the most part, is not impacted by the fire. That was not a big deterrent for those things. Although water, we were very close to having conservation measures implemented, and I had kept the council advised on that. So water sales are down, but when water sales are down, our expenses are down. The treatment costs go down equivalent to the amount of water we treat. So I think we're going to be giving the council a budget that reflects some estimates on sales tax that we may have to revise and reconsider when you have your budget retreat in October. Because by October, we'll know August and have a good handle on September. So that could result in some further changes. Hopefully those changes are for the better. So that concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
And members of the council.
I like to see visuals, and I like everyone else to see the visual that, you know, you'll hear me say at City Council, shop locally. And when we talk about hiring policemen to be on the river trail or to be downtown, this is how we hire them through the general revenue. How we pave streets, how we fix things is through the general revenue. It's based on that sales tax chart up there. And the sales tax that also generates the money for, you know, we had people come in and say they wanted a tunnel, for example. Well, that sales tax that goes into the Parks and Rec, if it's down, then fewer projects get accomplished. So it's a real reality check up here for everybody up behind the dais. We love our local businesses. I'll tell you what I've been doing. I'm downtown shaking hands and thanking people to coming to Durango. I've met people from Northern California, Utah, Tyler, Texas. I'm one of those. Thank you very much for coming to Durango, and tell your friends. What you can do at home is to put it on your social media that Durango's open for business. Come, go to Night Horse, ride the train, eat at our beautiful restaurants, ride a bicycle down the Animas River Trail. This is what you can do to help change those numbers and to promote the town that you love and that we all love. So thank you very much. We're not about doom and gloom. We make decisions up here, but it's based on that sales tax.
What I neglected to mention is address the live within your means.
Yes, sir.
Comment. That gap that I was describing, we have to balance the budget. We cannot have a budget that's not balanced. So that means we either find money, a new source of revenue, which is not likely in those few months, or we adjust our spending. We have to live within our means.
That's right. That means projects will not get accomplished.
Correct.
And so when someone says the city doesn't live within their means, not true. We face the facts. When someone says you're spending too much money, not true. We only spend what we have to work with. This council's very, very, we pay attention to the numbers. We have to, because we have so many people depending on us. Any comments from the rest of the council?
Thank you.
I would just comment, because it's fresh in my mind from the workshop I was in yesterday and today. One of the things we were talking about is, you know, what happens when we have extra costs, and this is in the utilities program. Mm-hmm. Well, what happens is that projects get deferred, and then we have this growing backlog of deferred maintenance. And same thing is true whether we're talking about utilities budget. It has, at least there is that definite source of revenue through our water and sewer fees, but the same thing is true here. And yeah, we can cut back, and then there are things that don't get done. I'm, being reasonably familiar with the budget, and I think I heard a rumor from the manager about this earlier. We have one capital project that is probably could account for about half of the projected shortfall.
Correct.
And then the residents of that street have been extremely patient as this project has gotten pushed back from year to year, and here we go again. And
Correct.
so it's pay me now or pay me later. And we've had this we had the same conversation when we were talking about adjusting the Santa Rita project. When we say, okay, we can't build the administration building out of the original loan fund, we can, the plan is to build it out of our utility fee revenue, but that all right, there goes, what is it, $8 million or $6 million, whatever it turns out to be, of other funds that are included in our capital plan for utilities, which then get pushed out further. So it's very much a Mr. Goodrich scenario.
I did want to share with the community that the City Council sent letters to Senator Michael Bennett, Senator Cory Gardner, and also to Congressman Scott Tipton. And the letters were in support of the Good Samaritan legislation, and also to Trout Unlimited in support of the Citizen Superfund Working Group. So City Council does pay attention to not only our local issues, but issues that impact the world that we live in. And we are often contacting our senators. They were here a few weeks ago, so supporting the city of Durango and also the city of Silverton. So just to let you know, we are always in contact with our congressman. Anything else for the good of the community?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much and for watching and being at the Durango City Council, and our next scheduled meeting will be on August the 7th. Thank you so much.